Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about creating custom components and customizing your AutoCAD Electrical. So to start off a little bit, for those of you who are new with us to the KETIV AVA, KETIV Autodesk Virtual Academy is a way for us to continually update our customer base with new features and practices that we find throughout the course for different programs. It's also a live, year-round, web-based learning procedure. It occurs every Thursday from 10 a.m., typically lasts about a half hour to an hour. It incorporates Autodesk design and manufacturing topics, and we have a continually growing base of upcoming sessions and topics. Now, the next three that are coming up, we have Inventor template drawings. We are doing an introduction to Showcase, and then we're also going to be doing bolted connections with a bonus session. So for today's topics, as far as creating custom components within AutoCAD Electrical, we're going to be creating a block. We're going to take a look at configuring your symbol. We're then going to be adding that symbol to a class and adding a component to your icon menu. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with AutoCAD Electrical or just trying to get used to the program out of the box, these custom components will allow you to incorporate your own company standards. Maybe you have your own symbols that you like to use for different things. This will allow you to have those inside your AutoCAD Electrical project. Now, AutoCAD Electrical has an already pretty in-depth symbol library that you'll have a lot of access to, but you never know when maybe you'll have even a customer will come back and they're just like, okay, we want to have your power supply represented differently because this is how our engineers are used to seeing it. So what I'm going to show you today is actually adding in a brand new power supply to a project that I have set up. So let's jump into the demonstration. Alright, so here we have my project that I have set up. Now, if you aren't used to AutoCAD Electrical, a project is a way of combining and linking different drawings together. AutoCAD Electrical requires projects in order to talk to the drawings and then specify how the components are going to talk to each other. So to start this off, what I'm going to do is we're going to create a block. Now, creating the block will be done much in the same way as you'll do this within AutoCAD. So let's get rectangle drawn here. We'll throw in a couple terminals. Alright, so there we have just a basic AutoCAD shape. We're going to turn this into a block. So now we have our block definition dialog box. We're going to name this power supply. We're going to select our objects. All right. Now we're going to specify our base point. And we're going to confirm our selection. So over here now you'll notice that we have our AutoCAD geometry is now a block. So now the easy part's over with, we're going to go ahead and jump into actually creating our symbol. Now, AutoCAD Electrical is a really great tool in this for us, and it's called the Symbol Builder. Now, you can find this underneath your schematic tab on the far right-hand side underneath other tools. And the Symbol Builder is going to be our AutoCAD's wizard to run us through the process. It's going to tell us what attributes we're going to need to add. It's going to give us any extra options that we have. It's going to help us set up our connection points for the wires so that we don't have to guess where they're going to be. So let's jump into this real quick. So the first dialog box that we're presented with is selecting your symbol or your object. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can either select something that you already have saved, so you can use your existing blocks that you already have just in case you're going into electrical. You can grab those blocks out. Or you can have it so you go ahead and you can select from a drawing. So what we're going to do is, we already have this one saved to a drawing, so we're going to select our power supply. And then you'll notice how we get a preview on the bottom right hand side that will show the geometry that we'll be adding. Since we already have this block saved, you don't need to worry about specifying on the drawing as far as an object or your insertion point. It already gets saved in there. Our next area is our library path. So right now I have this saved as JIC. If you wanted to use IEC, maybe NFPA, you can select your different libraries that you'll be using within AutoCAD Electrical. And the next area you're going to have is your symbol type. Now I want to cover a little bit about this because the symbol and type are two areas that are very key when setting up your symbol. If you don't do these correctly, you're going to have issues in the long run as far as how the component is going to behave within your schematic. So right now we have a horizontal parent. You'll also notice that we have a vertical parent. I would highly recommend that you have both of these set up whenever you make a new symbol. What these do is when you have these symbols that are added into your library, when you go to add a block onto a vertical or a horizontal wire, it's going to search for either a horizontal or vertical component, and that's where this is going to come into play. The horizontal child and vertical child would be much in the same way, except this is for a parent-child relationship. Maybe you have some contacts or terminals on a coil that you want to have connected. That's where you need to specify, okay, this is going to be a child of a certain component. You also have the ability to select if it's a terminal, horizontal or vertical. And then when we get down to the bottom towards the panel footprints, nameplates, and also terminals is where you're going to be able to start to get into pulling off some of that CAD data from maybe Allen Bradley and grabbing some of that and placing it inside your part. So for this, we're going to use the horizontal parent. Our next area, type, is another. This is how AutoCAD Electrical will figure out what to look for in your catalogs. If you need to make sure to specify as much as you can where your component's going to fall into. If you don't know right away, you can use the generic, but I found that most of the time, whatever component kind of goes into a certain spot. I mean, you know if it's a fuse, if it's going to be a circuit breaker or a control relay. So for our situation, we're going to select a power supply. So now that we have our initial setup complete, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Alright, so our next dialog box, you'll notice, looks a lot like the block editor, but with an extra window on our side. Over here we have the Symbol Builder Attribute Editor. And what this does is it tells us our required attributes, any optional attributes that we have, and then also lets us set up our wire connections. Now this is the wizard I was talking about earlier and how it lets you do picks and clicks and drag these attributes right into it. So there's no guesswork. You won't find out that you're missing something later and then have to republish it. You can just, it's all laid out for you so it's easy to find. And as far as getting this information in here, we're just go ahead and click and drag it over, and then you'll notice we have tag 1 that appears. And then after we place each of these in, we're going to get a little check mark so we know that the program is registered that we added these attributes. So let's add in a few of them. Let's do our descriptions. Let's do our installation and location codes. And then what I save these last for are because these are called hidden attributes. Now, when we go to put these in, you'll notice that they're really small, that the text is tiny. This is because they're not meant to be seen. This is how AutoCAD Electrical is going to store the information that you assign to the component. We'll get a little bit into this once we actually place the component into the program or into our schematic. But right now, if you've used it before, if you go to do a insert component and you get your dialog box, it'll ask you for your catalog information, the manufacturer, and then the assembly code maybe. This is where it's going to store that information inside the block. Some other optional ones we have, let's go ahead and toss in a rating to the bottom right hand side. And then now we have our attributes set up. We have all the required done. We have an optional one that was placed in. And then now we're going to set up our wire connections. Now the wire connections are going to tell the schematic how to attach the wires to the component. Now you need to specify we have left none, top none, bottom, right, radial, and then if you have any custom ones, we can select this others and we can start loading in our own. Maybe you want to have a wire coming off at a 45, or you want to have it coming off at a specific direction. You can set that up within the program. So let's do a left none, and then we're going to come over here where it says Insert Wire Connections and just click this. And then you'll notice that we'll have this little terminal one that pops up. So I want to, since we did a left none and the wire is going to be coming from the left-hand side and connecting to this terminal, let's connect this to this quadrant. If we had other left none connections, maybe we're in like a terminal block, we can just keep going down the list and it'll keep adding new terminals. So it'll be terminal 1, terminal 2, terminal 3, and so on. I also want to zoom in right here. So we have our big text, which is the attribute. And then we also have this little text right here. Now this X4 terminal 01 is a attachment point that AutoCAD Electrical recognizes. And it places it in at this point. So now the program knows that the wire is going to come in here and it's going to connect to this exact point. So let's go ahead and add in the rest of our wires. So we're going to do a right none. Insert the wire connection. Connect it to that terminal point. And then let's do our bottom. Okay, so now that we have our 3 terminals set up, let's go ahead and move these attributes so that they're not overriding anything. Okay, so now we have our symbol set up. We have our terminals, we have our terminal wire connectors, and then we have our descriptions and our tags, and the symbols looking about how we want it to. Now to double check that everything's looking right, we can go ahead and come up to the top left-hand side and actually test the block. Alright, so what it went ahead and did was it dumped in this PW value. So let me show you where we got that from. If you're doing a specific component that you know needs to have certain information, you can set it up inside this attribute editor. So we know that for this company, we're going to have our power supply tag as PW. So we already have this placed in. The family code is something you need to leave alone. This is how electrical is going to recognize that this is a power supply, so you can't modify this. But if we come down to our wire connections, where our terminals, we can actually tell the program, okay, so this terminal is always going to be called X1. And then this one's going to be Y2. And let's make this bottom terminal a ground. So now that we have this information placed in here, and we go to test the block again, it'll automatically populate that information in for us. So we have our X1, our Y2, and our ground. Okay, so now that we have everything set up in here, we're going to go ahead and hit done. And we're going to get our final box. Now this is where it comes to a little bit more setup, and we're going to leave this as a W block. We can either do a block if we want, but W block we can actually specify the file path to where we want this saved. So right now we're going to go ahead and leave this as going into my GIC 125 library. We're going to specify that this is a power supply again. For our unique identifier, we're going to call this KETIV. And then you notice that down here, this first initial section didn't change. This is how Electrical recognizes this block as being AutoCAD intelligent. So we can go ahead and put an underscore here to break that up a little bit, and then this will automatically update for us. Another thing it'll also do is it'll generate an image of the block for us that we can use later inside our icon menu. We have it saved as PPE_KETIV, and we're going to direct this to our project location. If you want to have a folder somewhere on a network that has all these images, you can go ahead and do that too. Okay. So now we have saved in that file path. And since we already set this up as our initial point being in the center of our block, we have it set at 0, 0, 0. But if you wanted to, you can come back and just double check that our pick point for the base is going to be right in the center. So now that our setup is complete, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK. But actually here, we'll cover this too. If you're missing anything out of here, it'll actually come up and it'll let you know if there's any errors in the block. So let's explore that. Inside the symbol audit, it'll show you any missing required attributes. It'll let you know if maybe you have two attributes of the same type, if you're missing any values that were required, maybe you didn't do your insertion point or it's on the wrong layer. It'll check everything for you. If you have any of these errors, it will still let you go forward with it, just in case you don't care about those and it's fine the way you want it. It'll let you do it, but just in case, this is a good way to just go back and make sure that everything's the right. Now it's going to ask me if I want to insert the symbol after closing the block. And I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. This is just a way for me to test that everything's working okay. And let's just drop it. So now you'll notice that we went ahead and it placed in all the values that we initially went. If we right-click on it, it's now an actual component. If we came back and go down and check out this block and we right-click on it, we're just getting the default AutoCAD menu. So now that we have our symbol, let's go ahead and add this into our icon menu. So let's come over to our schematic tab, over to our icon menu wizard. We're going to specify that we're looking for an FPA menu. Hit OK. And then now we have our icon menu. Adding something to this is as simple as right-clicking, adding the icon, selecting a component, and then we get this Add Icon Component dialog box. So let's go ahead and name this KETIV Power Supply. Our image file, we're going to browse to the location that we already specified, this power supply image. Open it. And then now we need to do the block. So the block is going to direct the program to the symbol that we just created so that it knows when we click on the icon, it's going to grab that specific block. So let's go browse. And here's a list of all the blocks, so let's go ahead and search for that one we just created, PPWE KETIV. Open that, and now we have our block inserted. So we're going to hit OK, hit yes, and now we have our KETIV power supply. So now what we can go ahead and do is draw our wire, activate our icon menu, find our KETIV power supply, and now it'll just drop onto this wire. We'll get our insert edit component, so let's fill out some information here. Power supply. Maybe we'll do 120 volt. You'll notice that our pins are already filled out, X1, Y2, and ground. If we wanted to change these, we could also do this in here. So if we want to change this to X2, Y3 for instance, let's do operator station. And then if we wanted to input any catalog data, we could also do that in here. So hit OK. And now our block updated with all the information that we have. So it changed to X2, Y3, got our ground. It put our rating inside on the right-hand side. And what we can also do is just double check that our wires are working the right way. So this is now connected to our connection point at the bottom. And that's how you set up your own custom component. So in summary, What we showed you today was how to create a block inside Electrical, which is much of the same way as in AutoCAD. We explored the simple builder utility and the wizard that's included with it. And then we customized an icon menu that you might have already had set up and then added the components to that. So we're going to move into our Q&A discussion. If any of you have questions, feel free to write them out in the chat and we'll be able to answer them now.
Hey Grayson, this is Jorge. So we did have a couple of questions come across here.
Okay.
So one of them was they wanted to reiterate, make sure, so in other words, to get something like this started, you have to create a block or you can reuse your own block, right?
Right, so that's another thing. You can either create your own, or if you maybe already have a library of blocks built from your days of using just plain AutoCAD, you can just pull those in. And it'll behave the same way, it's just they're just blocks.
Right. And kind of a follow-up to that, or there's another one that's kind of similar to that, talking about blocks, asking if you can customize the font size, the styles, line types, etc. for the block.
Yep, same thing. So when we were setting up the attributes, you can go ahead and jump into the properties for those. You can justify left, right, you can specify your text height, you can do any configuration that you'd normally be able to do inside a block.
Right. And then one last thing that I see so far is looks like someone wants to know about doing this like on a network. It looked like you used some stuff there on your own computer, right? But this could also just go on a server on a network and have it available for everybody as well.
Yep, correct. So a lot of the times you'll have it so your libraries are saved on a network so that way everybody can access them. You might have a specific folder that all the blocks can be found on, so it'll work the same way as you'd be accessing inside AutoCAD.
There's another question that just came in. I think we'll have to take this one offline, but it talks about migrating the AutoCAD Electrical library from 2013 to 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So someone having an issue, so I think we'll take that one offline, but is there anything you can add to migrating blocks from one version to another?
I'm pretty sure it should be fine. It might take a little bit of setup because I believe that they changed some of the coding structure in 2014 or 2015, but as far as I'm aware, that it should be easy to port over.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll make sure to get back to you on that one, to the person who asked that question. Okay, those are all the questions I see here.
All right. So here are some recommended next steps. The biggest one is practice. Get in there, start messing around with it, just see what you can do. And in case that you have a very large library and maybe you just don't have the time to get to it, we do custom services here. We've done component generation, a lot of database configurations for customers. We also have an AutoCAD Electrical Essentials class that's coming up on January 18th and 19th. And this is great for users that are just trying to jump into the program, or maybe you just need a refresher course to learn more about it. Another thing that's really important to note is that if you are on a subscription, they just came out with the Subscription Advantage Pack, and that included some unique functionality. I believe a few of the things that they added were now you can have AutoCAD Electrical and Inventor where they combine your bill of material reports. You can update item number balloons on the fly and have it apply to all drawings inside the active. And then also when you're doing errors inside the electrical audit, maybe you know that it's supposed to be like that and it gets a little frustrating that it keeps just coming back with these errors, you can now mark it as like ignore, so you can ignore those errors.
And just a reminder to everybody, we are recording this session. It's on our YouTube channel. If you search for KETIV, you'll see that we have a playlist for these AVA sessions, and we'll include those links to these, how to get to those as well in those uploads we'll give you.
Okay, and then just touch base against on the upcoming sessions. We have Inventor templates, our intro to stroke case, and then the bolted connections.
That's right. I want to remind everybody, since the holidays are coming up, the next two sessions are you will get a link to videos that we'll make for them. Since we're not, there'll be some people who are out, some people who are still in and would like to still receive more information. You'll be getting a link to the videos we'll create for the inventor drawing templates and for the intro to showcase. Otherwise, we'll, in January, we'll start right back up again with the bolted connections, which, by the way, was something that came from the community. So this another reminder for those of you that see the survey afterwards, by all means, please give us some feedback. Let us know what you think, what types of topics you'd like to see. We are trying to incorporate those as soon as possible into our AVA schedule.
All right, so thank you for everybody coming by today. See you next week. If you want to get any more information, please check out our blog, our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn profiles. They'll have a lot of different tech tips on the blog. The YouTube will have the videos for our webcasts loaded up onto it. And then if you ever need to get in touch with us, feel free to call in.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great day and happy holidays.